Hello and welcome to Lights Cable Action. I'm Maria Lemieux, the host of the show. Joining me today are the General Manager of SELCO, Mike Hale, and the Marketing Manager, Jackie Pratt. Thank you for coming on today. They're both very excited to talk about a new project at SELCO called the Community Solar Project. It's a long time in the making, and I don't want to wait any longer for you guys to not be able to talk about it. So I'm going to get started with Mike, and maybe just tell us why SELCO wanted to go into solar.
Sure. Before I do that, I think, this show is being filmed on August 7th, which is a very hot day. It's close to probably 95 degrees today. Yesterday was similar weather, August 6th, and the solar was in full production yesterday, so that was saving us a significant amount of money for our ratepayers. But why do we go into that? That's a great question. I think the answer to that, Maria, is really threefold. SELCO has a long-standing, it's guided by a long-standing mission of providing the most reliable electricity or power supply to our residents and businesses at the best price. And so in the early onset of solar, as it became common across the state, we shied away from it because the cost of the panels were prohibitively expensive. As it took on more and more, the prices have come down, and it's gotten to the point where it fits well within our economic model, and we were able to build a project that met our mission statement of providing price at or below what our current cost of energy is in the wholesale markets. Another reason why we looked into solar is why we look into all types of energy, and we have a basket of goods that's very diversified from a power supply perspective. We have certainly a long-standing practice in the state of using fossil fuels. Oil and coal are being phased out, but we have still we're very dependent on natural gas. We have a significant amount of our portfolio that has natural gas. We're part owners of Seabrook. We have nuclear, but we also have hydro contracts, wind contracts, and now solar. And this is our second large-scale solar project. The first one was on Cherry Street on land owned by the Politos. And this project, which we're going to talk about today, is on the CAT portion of the ash landfill located at 620 Hartford Turnpike, almost diagonally across the street from the one on the Politos property. And lastly, I think clearly in the community as well as across the Commonwealth, there is a movement towards cleaner types of energy. There is certainly a faction or a group of residents who would like to see more and more of the portfolio come from both wind, solar, and small hydro. And we are listening to them and trying to fit it within our portfolio, but still being cognizant of our mission. And in doing so, we participated in the first or the largest wind project at the time out in the Berkshires. We built a 15 megawatt project with a number of other municipal electric companies. We have contracts with hydro in New Hampshire, a small hydro dam. We signed a wind contract for wind on the coast of Maine last year. And this is our foray into large-scale solar. So it is to meet the interest of some of our customers who would like to see that needle move a little bit. I'm fairly proud to say that well over 40% of our energy mix is non-carbon producing. That would include hydro, nuclear, wind, and solar. So.
Okay, so great. So it provides a diversification into a more cleaner energy source, which is, right. I think what everybody is really looking towards in the future. However, this project did not, there's always those projects that don't always go according to plan, and this one was long in the making, and if I have to say, if it had not been for you and your perseverance and determination to make it happen. It otherwise probably would not have, given the obstacles that you had to overcome to have it happen here in Shrewsbury. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about the history of the project, just to give everybody a clear understanding of actually why it took so long and how we ended up where we are today.
I think, in summary, and I'll get into it, is sometimes bureaucracy gets in the way of progress. And in the case of government and regulations, that bureaucratic process got in the way of this being done the way it had to be done if all regulations and state statutes were to be followed. So this project goes back about 5 years, working with then town manager Dan Morgado and then assistant to the town manager Tom Gregory. The town put out a bid for solar developers to build a solar array on top of a portion of the capped ash landfill that Wheelabrator operates at 620 Hartford Turnpike. The town went to town meeting first and was able to get town meeting to approve changes in the operating agreement with Wheelabrator so that we could put the solar there. And then an RFP was written and bids were solicited from solar developers. That RFP included a fixed price for what SELCO was willing to pay for the energy, and the bidders had to bid on what they would pay the town for a rental or a rental of the land, as well as a tax agreement or payment in lieu of tax for the value of the solar panels. So the bids were based on those two factors for the town. After the evaluations were done, the project was awarded to 10K Solar, a solar developer out of Minnesota. After 18 months of negotiation with 10K, several hundred hours of town staff time, SELCO staff time, thousands of dollars in town legal fees and SELCO legal fees, the plug was pulled on the project within the last 2 weeks. I gave Kenyon 2 weeks to get the thing going or pay us $25,000. They agreed to that terms to extend it for 2 weeks. They couldn't get the project done or sign a contract within those 2 weeks. They did pay us the $25,000. But it got bogged down in that process as we learned more about 10K after the fact and after they went bankrupt, which I'm kind of glad that it didn't happen if we had a project with a bankrupt company, and that seems to be happening more and more in the solar industry. They had developed a specialized panel that had a greater output, but it was really designed for rooftop units, and they were proposing to use us as a beta site for a ground mount solar program, and the technology wasn't going to work. And so we're thankful that they dropped out. We took a little break in the action for 6 to 9 months or so, and then I went and saw Dan and bugged him and said, let's do it again. We got to get this done. And he said, you're crazy. We're not going to do this.
The wounds have healed.
Yeah, so they went out to bid again. We changed the bid structure a little bit. Again, SELCO had a fixed price for the energy that it was willing to pay. And the town this time gave a fixed price for one of the two cost factors that they were evaluating on. So really the bidders were only bidding on one item. This time the bid was awarded to Kenyon Solar, a fairly reputable solar firm. And we went through more hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars in negotiating. Because of the bidding statute and because the procurement statutes in the Commonwealth require the town to do this, the financing partner for Kenyon at the 11th hour backed out in November of 2017. So the whole solar program that the state runs is really based on subsidies. The economics work because of the subsidy that the solar developer gets. That subsidy program was due to go away in the spring of 18. So we really had to get the thing built by May, June time period if we were going to do anything. And there's no way we were going out to bid again. We thought it was dead. And we had a conversation with MWIC, which is a partner to SELCO. And MWIC is an agency that represents 19 or 20 municipal light plants throughout the Commonwealth. Their creation of the state legislature. And they have the ability to do things under their enabling legislation that created the entity. Mostly they buy our power for us on behalf of SELCO. They're a power supply aggregator. But they have the ability under their enabling legislation to do things that cities and towns can't. So we partnered with MWIC, and they were able to advertise the project and take bids. And then they took the bids in January. We had a contract signed in February, and we were off and running. So if it weren't for MWIC and their ability to bypass the bureaucracy of certain procurement statutes and regulations, the thing would be dead. So we're very grateful to them, and the arrangement that we have with them is that they will own the solar array until the debt is paid off on it. And they borrow the money, they charge us the financing and debt and interest payments. And after 10 years, when that facility is paid for, I think it's either 10 or 12 years, then the ownership will become SELCO's. We will operate it for the whole 25-year life, but they will own it during the time that there is a debt service on the project. And the great news is that with the subsidy that we're going to get, and we were able to get the project built in time so that we qualify for the subsidy, the project will provide power at rates lower than the current market rate, which is a huge win. Without the subsidy, it would have been four times what we're getting the power for.
And again, going back to the mission, trying to provide it in the most economical way.
So it was a huge win for the ratepayers to get this done. Yes, there was some risk. We felt the risks were worth it. If we didn't get the subsidy, if we didn't get it built in time, and we still proceeded, it would have been 8 or 9 cent power versus the sub 3 cent power per kilowatt hour that we feel that this will cost over a 25-year period. So that's kind of it in a nutshell as to how it all.
So you had kind of a stressful winter, didn't you? Because you had to get this the contract signed, and then also the project had to start and finish within a certain time frame. And at this point, like we were getting down to months.
Well,
right?
I thought it was going to be a lot more stressful than it was. It really wasn't that bad. Getting through the contract was stressful, and then the anticipation of building a solar array in the spring, which is the absolute worst time to build, because you'd think snow would be bad, but they can move the snow. It's the mud that they can't work in. It's on the top of a hill. It was very muddy, but they got it done, and I attribute a lot of it to the quality of the contractor that we had do the work. They were an outstanding partner, very few change orders. They kept to the schedule. We had weekly meetings. And we also hired a retired former public health director from Shrewsbury, Bob Jakes, who worked for Wheeler Brader for the second half of his professional career and was very familiar with the site, having retired from there a few years ago, but he knew the lay of the land, and he was able to, and he was involved in the construction of all the cells that take the ash, so he knew all the soil conditions, and he was very helpful in satisfying all the stakeholders that were involved in the project, and that would be Wheeler Brader. They're still operating there. DEP, which has great concern over putting something on top of a landfill. He was able to assist us in working through those issues with DEP. The contractor, he was great with, and of course, the SELCO staff. So
it all came together. So it's a great project, and also we have to give thanks to Kevin Looney, who went out and got some great drone footage for us that we're going to take a look at. The project started in April, right? So we begin our project in April, and
so we're up there in April, and the footage that we have on the screen now, it shows just the bases. So each one of the solar panels is put on a concrete slab because you can't penetrate the earth of the capped landfill. So rather than have them put on, they have to be on an actual concrete slab. So this first footage shows how that all laid out on top of the site. The site is approximately 11.6 acres where the solar array is. The site's much larger than that overall, but the site that the solar array is on is 11.6 acres, and it represents 10,802 panels, which produce about 3.5 megawatts of power on a good sunny day at high noon.
How many days are we getting this year? Yeah.
So, and then as we progress through these shots that are on the screen, the next shot kind of takes you into mid-May, halfway through the construction this construction of the facility. And again, you'll start to see here on this screen the actual panels going up on top of each of the bases. The project with all of these panels that you're seeing on the screen will produce about 5 million kilowatt hours of energy per year. What does that all mean?
Yeah, how many do we use in a year?
So we SELCO typically uses between 280 million and 300 million kilowatt hours. So this 5 million from this project represents a very small portion of our overall power supply, about 1.6%, but it's still something. And what better use is there for that land other than it could be this or some type of passive recreation, walking trails or driving range or something like that for golfers. But this actually produces greater economic and benefit to the citizens.
Well, the other thing to put this into perspective too is that you figure there's 10,800 panels and you're generating the 5 million kilowatts, but it's like, how many more would you need to satisfy the 200,000, you know? Like
right, 200 million.
Yeah, right?
300 million. So it would be more than the town, I think, to produce
just
all
to give
by
everybody
solar.
some perspective of
Right.
like, you know, if you're thinking about like solar, like keeping things green, like that's
Yeah.
a lot. It's a lot. And
this is a large scale project, so you
Okay.
can, to do it for the whole, to have the whole town solar. The other thing with solar is that it's kind of hard to believe, but solar only produces energy 14 to on a high end 17% of the hours in a year. It doesn't produce, before sunup, and it doesn't produce after sundown, and it doesn't produce when the panels are covered with ice in the dead of winter. Yeah. So it's really only 14 to 70% of the total hours in a year that you're actually getting production out of solar.
That's amazing.
So, now wind is about double that. So wind has a higher production capacity, but the cost is more expensive too. So it all weighs out. The third video that we're going to put up on the screen really is from the date we had the ribbon cutting on June 29th, and it actually shows what the array looks like upon completion of all 10,800 panels being put in place. I think it's worth noting, what will this do? What does this have the potential to do? Well, it really has the potential to provide enough energy if we use the entire solar farm. It would provide enough energy to provide the electrical needs for 400 to 450 average size homes in Shrewsbury. So it is fairly substantial. And when you couple that with the project across the street, which is a little bit smaller than this one, but very similar in size,
okay.
That will provide another 300 to 350 homes. So we have the potential to power up to 800 of our homes in Shrewsbury from these two solar arrays in town, which is pretty substantial. The other thing that we're exploring and have committed to is reserving 1 million kilowatt hours out of the 5 million total for the proposed Beale School project, which is in the planning process and will be taken to town meeting later this fall. And there are certain points that are scored by school building officials on LEED certified buildings, and so this may assist them if we can use that, say that their energy needs are met solely by solar from this array. And so we're reserving 1 million kilowatt hours for that project should the voters of the community pass that project this coming fall. So I think that's a pretty big win for the town as well. It will potentially reduce the cost in the future for that school.
And they might need that.
Yeah, and I think the last important part to talk about is that this will be SELCO's first community solar initiative, and that Jackie's here really to talk about the community solar project that we put together. Yep. And this is the perfect time to discuss it because we just launched it quietly on the website, and we will be promoting it through the newsletter in August, the Farmers Market, Today's Show, and other means and methods. And we are well, I'm going to let Jackie talk.
Why don't we let Jackie?
Yeah.
Sure. Why
I'm
don't
not
you tell
taking
us
that.
about the what the community solar project is?
Sure. So as Mike said, the solar project that we just did in the landfill should produce about 5 million kilowatt hours a year. Over the course of its 25-year life, sometimes that gets down to around 4 million. So to be on the safe side, we want to make sure that we have enough energy in our programs to meet the needs of what we're trying to do here with what the panels are producing. So we've, as he said, set aside 1 million kilowatt hours a year to go towards the Beale School if that helps them with their funding projects, yep. Right? Process. So we're taking 3 million kilowatt hours a year, yep. And putting that towards the community component of this. So what is community solar? It's pretty straightforward.
What is it?
Yeah. Community solar is basically one solar array that multiple members of the community are able to have power attributed to their consumption, right? So up on the landfill, we have all of these panels out there and it's generating this energy. So what we're going to do is we're going to give 300 customers in Shrewsbury the opportunity to receive up to 10,000 kilowatt hours a year from this solar array. And we're going to attribute the power that's produced to their accounts with the state, so when they're going to look at where did the energy go, it's going to each of these individuals for their actual energy consumption.
Why is it capped at 10,000?
So it's capped at 10,000 kilowatt hours a year because 300 times 10,000 equals our 3 million that we have allotted for it. And again, in some of the early years when the panels are really churning out energy, we might actually produce more like 5 million kilowatt hours a year. Any additional solar that's generated from this project that doesn't go to the community component or the Beale School component, that just becomes a regular part of SELCO's energy mix, and every customer in the town of Shrewsbury gets some of that. So even if you don't get to participate specifically in the community solar project, everybody's going to be getting some of this solar energy. It's a fairly negligible amount, but whatever excess there is from the program does go to our general power mix.
And the average customer uses about 9,000, so this is slightly higher than the average. You pegged it at slightly higher than the average customer, and that's how we
Correct. We want to make sure that for the average customer that's participating, and some will use less than that, and some will hit their 10,000 cap, but for the average customer that's participating at 750 kilowatt hours a month, that's the average consumption, they should be able to get 100% of their power annually from this project. So
and how's this going to work?
So the way it works is we've opened it up on our website. We posted to Facebook. It's in the August newsletters. You can go in and you can register at selco.shrewsburyma.gov/community-solar, and you just fill out the form. We're going to take applications through September 15th, and then after application process is closed, we're going to randomly select 300 participants that'll automatically be enrolled in the program. We're also going to select an additional 25 applicants who will be on a wait list. That way, because this program is open to anybody who's on the residential R1 rate and does not currently have solar panels on their home, we may have renters who are applying for this and they get into the program. If somebody moves out of town or doesn't want to participate anymore, we'll just go to our wait list and we'll add more people in.
Or if somebody sells their house.
Somebody sells their house, they move out of town, however it is. If somebody leaves the program, we're going to have a cushion of people that we can automatically enroll. If we find that we have fewer participants than we have slots after the September 15th deadline, we'll just open it up to a general open enrollment, first come, first serve, until we hit that 300 number. That being said, this is a great opportunity. Community solar, because you don't have to put solar panels on your home, it's a great opportunity for people who can't do that, either because they rent or their home's not well situated for solar or the cost of putting panels on their home is prohibitive. It gives a great opportunity for people to actually get solar power even though they are not installing panels on their homes. And we're doing this as simply as absolutely possible, right?
Yep.
So it's going to be at the regular residential rate. You're paid the exact same amount you would for your energy otherwise, but you're getting it from the solar. Now, some communities, when they do a community solar program, what they end up doing is there's an upcharge because there's a certain amount of maintenance that needs to be done on these solar arrays. We're just factoring that into this cost.
Others are even far more complex in that people buy into shares into the project.
Sure.
And they get a portion of the solar renewable credits, the subsidy, and it's a lot of administrative work. Our feeling was, let's make it as simple as possible, not only for SELCO to administer,
Sure.
but also for the customer to understand.
Yeah, we want this to be accessible. We want people to just be able to get their bill and understand it. Mm-hmm. Hey, I've got that little line item
Yep.
that says my energy is coming from solar.
Yep.
Up to 10,000 kilowatt hours a year. So that makes the most sense for us. We want to make sure that there's, not a barrier in terms of cost for our folks to participate. So please take a moment, go to selco.shrewsburyma.gov/community-solar and register before September 15th. There'll also be a paper registration form that's included on the newsletter in August bills.
Okay.
And we will be at the farmers market on August 15th, I believe. We'll have forms there that you can fill out. So we will be accepting them through the mail, or if you want to drop them off in the office, because we feel like making this as accessible as possible to everybody who is interested is the way to go.
And it is a lottery. It's like, just to be clear, it is a lottery. So even though you're signing up, it's whoever gets picked.
If we have 7,000 people sign up, we're still going to pick 300.
Okay.
If we have 200
if we have
people sign up,
300
everybody
people
gets
sign
in.
up, it's a win-win.
Right.
Yeah,
So to us, to me, really, when I'm talking to people about this is clean, affordable, locally produced energy for our local customers.
Okay.
I can't see a better win-win than that right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great project. We do have to mention though, if you do have solar panels on your house, you
Correct.
can't participate.
Right. Because you're already getting solar.
Yep.
So
And the other thing, before we run out of time, is that the whole solar program that the state runs is due to expire, or the current program is due to expire, I'd say probably sometime in September.
Okay.
And so they're going to create a new program called the SMART program, but it won't be eligible for people who live in municipal utility districts. So I have been working with DOER, the state agency that oversees solar, and we're coming up with our own program. We met with them yesterday in Boston, and we're putting the finishing touches on it. So we will have a solar program moving forward, and those details will be announced probably in September, October time period for people who don't have solar on the roof, who still want to do it. There will be a subsidy that will be provided via state funds and SELCO matching funds.
So there you go. More to come. More to
Yeah.
talk about,
Yeah.
right, in the fall.
Right.
All right, so I want to thank you all for joining us, and don't forget to sign up. And if you are interested on seeing what happened at the ribbon cutting and hearing what was said, stay tuned because that'll be showing right after this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary.